Hey everyone, David here. We're almost done with Alien Earth, and I wanted to let you know about something that we've put together. We've created a season pass for our coverage. It's $10 one time, no recurring subscription. You can grab this whenever it works for you. What you get is ad-free access to all Alien Earth episodes, plus the bonus video analysis that I've already done, and several more background conversations and special episodes that I've got in planning. We put a lot of work into the episodes, and when it's all said and done, you're getting more than 10 podcasts for $10, which really is a pretty good value considering the amount of time and production work that we put into all the episodes. And look, we're an independent podcast, and having direct listener support like this means that we get to keep doing this kind of deep dive coverage that we all enjoy. It's pretty simple. So only if this works for you and your circumstances, no pressure at all. But if you've been enjoying Alien Earth coverage and want to support what we're doing while getting some extra content, the season pass is there for you. You can find the link in our show notes or head to lorehoundsnetwork.supercast.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being part of this really great community.
System is now activated.
Welcome to the Lorehounds. We're your guides to the xenomorphically induced terror. I'm your host, Dr. Seth Brundle. This is our coverage of Alien Earth Season 1, Episode 6, The Fly. Given that we're running multiple shows, right now we're doing Alien Earth a squadron style, kind of like we did for Andor. John and Marilyn just finished up with Foundation. Go over and check them out. They had a great time with the season, but the finale episode was a little shaky. And Alicia, who absolutely loves Peacemaker, is full in on that show with Jean and Aaron. So each week I've got a different set of co-hosts. Today we continue our unholy experiment of putting the mind of Properly Howard into the body of a lorehound. With me to discuss it all are comic Steve Osborne and Dr. Anthony Ladon. I was going to do like a little Sunday, this Sunday only with Steve's, Osborne, because I bungled his name last week. So, but I didn't get a chance to do that. I apologize.
It's the thought that counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the least you can do.
We are going to spoil everything Alien related. So all movies, books, video games. I don't think we've read books or the video games and stuff like that. But that's what's happening. And episode 7 next week, I'm going to have our good friend Ron Dawson joining me. We're recording on Fridays, so coverage is not as instant as other podcasts, but we're going to try to dig in a little bit deeper. Just the last roundup of housekeeping stuff. We've got a season pass. So if you want to get episodes ad-free, that really helps us cover our costs on production and everything. But I've also got bonus material in there. So I've got a conversation with Marilyn about Peter Pan, got some video breakdowns, and I've got some other stuff planned for that. Emails, avp@thelorehounds.com. Anthony, you've got quite the bag over there. What's your guys' plan for feedback? Because you're going to do a special one on your podcast.
Yeah, we've been collecting feedback. Steve and I will be recording a feedback podcast and airing that over at Properly Howard early next week. So you can do a search for Properly Howard movie review, and you'll get to hear us talk about Alien Earth.
Excellent. All right, well, let's get into it. What did you guys make of the episode?
I didn't know that toe jam picking could be such a power move. And I feel like I've kind of been leaving a lot on the table. I feel like if I had used that technique earlier in my life, I'd be in a much different place career-wise.
Yeah, there's something to be said for toe jam money.
Yeah, right. Exactly. At what point in the trillionaire scale do you have to be before you got toe jam money?
Yeah, and I don't know. It sort of humanizes too, right? I mean, it suggests that like you can reach a point where you have so much money that it, like you probably when you're in your billions phase, you have someone doing that for you. Once you hit the trillions phase, you realize it's sort of that just a cycle, right? Like we talked about the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? But then you get this sense of like there's usually this peak where you think you know everything, and then you sort of hit this valley where you start to realize that you have so much more to learn, and then as you acquire knowledge, you become more sort of like in your guru state, right? So he's perhaps going through that right now. Like I think I'm not saying he's achieved it, but he's like moving maybe out of it and into the point where it's like, you know what? I'm just a guy with dirty feet, just like anybody else.
David, I think I might know Steve's answers on this. I don't know yours. What are your feeling about feet, sort of on the scale of they make me want to throw up to Quentin Tarantino? Where would you find yourself on that scale?
I think I am just center line towards throw up.
Not your favorite, but you're by no means a fetish for sure.
No, by no means. My daughter did something weird the other day. She like took her dinner napkin and wiped her foot with it, and I was like, what the hell did you just do? Just one of those little kid absent-minded things, right? And I wasn't horrified. I was more shocked that it happened than disgusted. So I guess if that answers the question. I'm not disgusted by feet, but I recognize that feet go places and encounter surfaces that, the rest of our bodies don't.
Sarah and I were talking about this recently, and I think, and I need your perspective on this. My perspective is that you've lived on the East Coast for a while.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I've lived elsewhere. And
that's right.
Yeah, I've lived on the East Coast, the West Coast, and internationally.
Okay. So I think that there's a fundamental difference between the grossness of feet on the coasts. So I feel like the further you go east, the more it is uncouth to wear flip-flops.
Agreed.
To be barefoot in general. Whereas if you are living on Catalina Island off the coast of LA, if you don't even own socks, it's just not a thing. You might have like a pair stashed away somewhere, but socks are definitely optional clothing.
I spent some time in Australia as well, and I can certainly say that going barefoot is a status symbol I don't know what it is. I saw a guy once get out of, it wasn't a Ferrari, but it was something like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
In like ripped up jean shorts, barefoot, looking like a hobo. But the Australians have this thing about their presentation, and going barefoot is almost kind of an iconoclastic thing to do.
Yeah, there's no doubt that guy is like alpha male. This guy has no trouble in the bedroom. This guy,
right?
We're talking
right.
Now,
And
Steve, I don't think I've ever seen Steve's feet. We've been friends since we were children. Steve, as far as I know, Steve doesn't have toes.
Is that a rumor you can confirm, Steve?
I like to keep the audience guessing.
Right.
I believe that a good foot matters. I wouldn't say I'd go fetish, but I would say that if I see a good foot, I appreciate a good foot, which is
so
to say
you're saying not all feet are created equal.
No, which is to say if I see a bad foot, and so that's why I keep my feet concealed, because I hold feet to a pretty high standard, and I would say structurally and in terms of symmetry, my feet can get it. But my toenails are just a problem. So until I fix that toenail situation, it's these babies are going to be under wraps.
That is something that we've never done as a couple, Steve.
This is like if Ryan Gosling had like was missing the front tooth. You'd be like, when his mouth is closed.
He's a pretty good looking guy, but it's like all I'm looking at is the tooth gap.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my feet. I have Gosling feet, but I got like my toenails are like Joaquin Phoenix's upper lip. You know what I mean? Like what I'm saying, it's just just sort of mars the experience a little.
So yeah, we're talking about alien Earth today, right?
But,
Theoretically.
I don't know. I don't got time
Supposedly. For that. Come for alien Earth, stay for the feet. Steve, what's up with Holly? What's he doing? What's he doing with this narrative framework?
That's a good question. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't have as much Holly experience as you guys. I think I've only seen one season of Fargo. Never saw Legion. So I'm kind of maybe experiencing him, I guess, from what I'm gathering, in his bag for like the first time. Really,
Lucy in the Sky. Have you seen that?
No,
I have not seen Lucy in the Sky. I believe his one feature film, right?
I think it's underrated. I mean, I think that there's I don't know. I've heard criticism about it. I rewatched it the other week, last week. Definitely worth a look, I think. But you were saying, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, especially coming off the previous episode, which we said is not a bottle episode. We jump right back into where everything sort of ties up, right? Like, so we take what we've learned, at least in terms of the involvement of the intertwining of the corporations from the last episode, and then we pick up with the with Wendy already in progress. I was all back in again. I think it's a really deft hand that is able to do those types of things, like to take you out of, and we saw this in Severance too, where an episode all of a sudden just takes us to a different spot, and we come back, and it feels seamless, even though it was completely interrupted. And I think it's a very clever and very challenging thing to pull off. And so I really enjoy getting back into the world and oh, that's right, Wendy and all the whole gang, and like even slightly felt like, man, that would feel like forever ago, but right back into the thick of it. And I mean, there's a lot we're going to talk about here, but I mean, I was back, and I did have maybe a little bit of I don't want to say disappointment, but the last episode was so good, and it was such a great, we talk about how it just felt like cinema. I did feel like I was back in TV again, and it was an interesting take, because I didn't necessarily feel it prior to the last episode. I was pretty locked into the universe and pretty locked into the narrative. And maybe just because that one was just so captivating and so cinematic, that now this felt episodic. And it's hard for me to know if it was the episode itself or if it was coming out of the last episode that I feel this way. And
the stakes are definitely different.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think that maybe it is maybe this episode itself. And I don't know if that has something to do with pacing, where when you take your time in the last episode to take us on a little bit of a back journey, if maybe things were, I don't want to say sped up, but maybe the pacing was maybe a little bit sacrificed to get this moving. I don't know. That's I think one of my bigger takeaways is that I liked it, but I don't know that I loved it in the same way that I was enjoying the stuff before, and I don't know what to put my finger on.
Almost a little bit of seasonal and episodic dysphoria. Not unlike Nibs is experiencing.
Yeah, there we go.
I thought that this was a little bit like a Game of Thrones episode where you have to establish various power dynamics. It's like, we're going to go to 7 different parts of the kingdom. We're going to introduce characters that have power relative to their sphere of influence. We have to set this up, because if these guys are ever going to clash, we have to know what is at stake and who has what power.
Right.
And
that's interesting.
I think, last week was it was just a whole different can of worms. And now I'm kind of dropped into where is the power? How much power does the iMidge actually have? I'm kind of wondering that at the end of this episode. Or what is the power dynamic between this married couple who are both employed by the company? Like what is their internal power dynamic? These are all kind of questions that I've got leaving this episode that will have to be answered. And it's just a little different flavor. I didn't like it less. I just felt like this is definitely a different flavor than the last one.
It's got to bridge and prep for the remainder of the action. But that's a really interesting analysis of the who's ascendant and descendant in relative power rankings. Because as they're ascending or descending, when they intersect with somebody else, there's going to be dramatic tension there. And there's going to be dramatic outcomes there. And then when we think about Kirsch, suddenly we're realizing that he's way, way, way more powerful than we expected. We knew he was powerful, but not like this level powerful. And then when the sheep breaks the fourth wall and stares at us at the very end, that's a power move. Right? That is a baller power move right there.
You were asking... Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Well, just especially for a creature that's whole existence is to observe, right? And it's just watching all of this. Like, so you got the juxtaposition of, Kirsch just sort of observing all of this sort of just unravel, and to the point where you're like, well, what's that about? And he's just watching, but the eye image is just watching. And there's this sense of like, oh, the watching with no action is, to me, that's the most devious something, because there's thoughts going on here. There is there's strategy going on just by observing and not getting into the fray. And there's something so much more sinister about just sitting and watching chaos unfold, but somehow you get the sense that like it's chaos in the moment, but maybe not necessarily chaos in the grand or diabolical scheme.
David, you said you made a note in our shared document that for a show titled Alien, the xenomorph seems to be less load bearing than you'd expect. Yeah. I think that that's probably by design. I think that I think it's a legitimate question to ask: who is the most powerful character in this story? Because you could make the case it's the image, or you could make the case it's Marcy / Wendy. It's like what would happen if she does say no? At one point Joe says say no has power to it. What if she does? Such a key line. Yeah. Clearly, she has sort of hyper intelligent AI capability. And if she decides, no, I want something different than Boy Genius, guess where there's a massive power swap, right? Exactly. Or is it that Kirsch is the most powerful player on the chessboard? It's like you've got a lot of players on this chessboard, a lot of pieces on this chessboard, and they don't have. It's not like they all have the same kind of scale of power. Like there's a power asymmetry, meaning like some people's power takes a different shape. Some of it's emotional. Some of it's emotional connection. Sometimes the power is just like intellectually, I can outrun you. And some of the power is like, dude, we got face huggers. So I think until the end of this episode, I think you could probably make that case. Like, yeah, well, the alien didn't really have much to do in this episode, but I think we're reminded at the end, when there's face huggers on the board, everything else stops. So,
well, and then with the image being sort of like the last image too, it's like, I think it's important to recognize that we are so xenomorph focused that alien is a very broad term. And in this case, it's the combination, right? Because the humans are the aliens to the specimens as well. And so there's something interesting to juxtapose everything here, right? Because not only that, but to some degree, humans have created their own aliens, right? I mean, the cyborg versus synth versus hybrid dynamic is something that's sort of an offshoot, right? And again, the thought being that there's some sort of control and power, so like to Anthony's point, there's emotional power, but then in other cases, like from a Kirsch perspective, he sees emotions as a weakness. right? I mean, that would be the thing. It's like, well, if you have emotions, those can be manipulated. If you can manipulate emotions, then humans are easy to a certain degree. They're easy to train, right? They're easy to move around. That's sort of what we're seeing with the idea of like human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, and trying to this whole quest for immortality. But also, you've got these actual specimens, these actual aliens that are, the image is doing exactly that. Its whole point is to find a host and manipulate that, and then upgrade if necessary and survive. But the question is it just survival, or is there something else? And because they're alien, we don't know the motivations, and we assume there's no emotions. But once you have communication between, Wendy and the xenomorph, communication oftentimes suggests community, or it suggests some sort of connection that can be part of survival, part of reproduction, all these different things, right? So that bridges a pretty key gap and creates a level of power as well, right? I mean, everyone's trying to figure out what to do with these aliens and what these specimens can meet for their final end. But now you have someone that can communicate in a way that seems meaningful. It's hard. I mean, so the aliens are power, but it's also who's in control. And in it's sort of like to Anthony's sort of Game of Thrones. It's like power dynamics are one thing, but if you can communicate with a dragon and you have the dragon, you become the most powerful. It doesn't matter if you're the best king. You're now the most.
You
powerful,
have dragons.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the rest of the series, the movie franchise, a lot of it is driven by human beings trying to exploit the species of the xenomorph to turn it into, if we could harness it, if we could weaponize it, we can use it like a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my note in the outline was not only about this episode, but about the series overall. The xenomorph is really this background player, actor. It's a threat. And yeah, when a facehugger is loose, then that stops all the other action. But it's the way that Hawley is using the alien story framework to interrogate these other questions about power, about species, and who has the right of species, and what is the worst parts of man. This is where I'm thinking that this season is operating on a wholly different level. And I don't wonder if some of the I want to characterize it carefully. There's a lot of chatter about, these, this technician did a dumb thing, and these aren't the best and the brightest going out to the stars, and that glass is pretty weak. How did it break through? So there's a lot of analysis of plot mechanic and the conceits of what Hawley has done to make the story work. And I get that. And at the same time, I'm not paying attention at that level at all. I'm interested into these questions of what is the worst parts of man? What is it to have moral culpability in experimenting on children? What is it to capture an intelligent or semi-intelligent species and then start to experiment and try to economically exploit them?
One of the things that Hawley said when I heard an interview with him, and one of the things he said was, I'm taking on the Alien franchise, but I don't feel like anything that I can do with the alien will actually provoke an emotion in the audience, because we've seen everything already.
Right.
So it feels like he's got to take this on a more complex level, which is, I think, what you're saying. It's like, there's a lot else about this universe that's interesting. Like the relationship between synths and, other kinds of creatures, or, the Weyland Yutani power grabs and disregard for human life. Those are all things that exist in this universe that are interesting and underdeveloped. And I'm happy to have all of these different power dynamics sort of be an ensemble cast with the alien. And I don't necessarily need every episode to be like last episode. But at the same time, you want attention to detail, especially with the science stuff, since this is a science fiction, right? And this is a science lab, and these are supposed to be the best of the best, right? The question is, what do you when you start believing you're the best? What do you start to sacrifice? What do you not see? Where are the gaps? And I think that these things.
I think that's a really important. I think that's a really important point. Is I am the most powerful. I have tons of money. I can hire the best scientists or engineers to fly out on the ship, but I'm going to pay them shit and I'm going to treat them like shit. And that's a sacrifice, right? Because I'm wielding my hubris. I'm wielding my ego. I am a big player in this space, and I got to keep my alpha perception. And so what kind of hidden sacrifices are you making with the people that you're employing to do?
If only there were any real life examples of like major corporations or very wealthy people who seem to cut back on regulations or seem to maybe not care so much about those that are employed by them in terms of safety and compliance and things of that nature. I just wish I could. I mean, if there was just one thing that we could point to,
or have the hubris to think, I'm good at this thing, maybe I'll be good at that thing too, and not being great, not kind of being a genius dummy at the same time.
Well, and the other side of it is I don't see Boy K feeding an image, So I mean, there's something to be said for or
spraying mold, trying to do mold abatement in his hallways.
Yeah, so it's like there's it's part of the experiment might be what happens if it's not super safe, right? I mean.
Yeah, that's definitely part of his MO, which is to break things, that whole ethos.
Yeah.
So, well, let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll start our episode sort of scene by scene analysis. All right, this is episode 6, The Fly, written by Noah Hawley and Lisa Long, directed by Ugla Hochstötter, who also directed episode 4. Got a 57-minute runtime, and we'll jump right into the warm open. We sort of fade into Neverland, Nibs, and we get some flashbacks of Nibs and Dame Sylvia, the image, Wendy and the lung and the baby Xeno. And then we get this really interesting shot, which I think has been the anchor to the whole warm opens overall, because we've constantly been seeing pictures of the camera sort of lingering and passing over the body of the xenomorph, but this time we have the xenomorph's corpse dissolving on the tray. We get that Strange Brew lyric again, those Cream lyrics. And there's somebody else, another body next to the xenomorph with an open thing. And I don't know if it was Bronsky from the ship, from the I'm going to call it the Nostromo, from the Maginot. But it's really interesting that this recurring theme of the body of the xenomorph in this episode now, it's the slowly decomposing, acid eating away visual images. And I'm curious as to what you guys think about what's Hawley doing with that motif.
Yeah, dissolving. Things that had form are descending into chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's basically where we're left at the end of this episode.
Yeah. And then I just love that song overlay. This time you could hear it a lot more clearly than last time, which was Strange Brew, Kill What's Inside of You. All right, our first scene, the Yes Place. Boy K reads more of Peter Pan as Wendy talks to the baby Xeno. Joe and Kirsch look on. Joe's worried for his sister, and Kirsch asks emotionally or intellectually. Ines, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, follows up on Nibs and fires Arthur. And Joe and Wendy discuss leaving the island. All children except one grow up. They soon know that they will grow up. And the way Wendy knew this was one day when she was 2 years old, she was playing in a garden and she plucked another flower and ran to it with her mother. I suppose she must have looked rather delightful, for Mrs. Darling put her hand to her heart and cried, "Oh, why can't you remain like this forever?" This was all that passed between them on the subject. But henceforth, Wendy knew that she must grow up. You always know after year two. 2 is the beginning of the end.
So you asked about structure before. I think that one of the things that is clearly motivating Holly here is the darkness of the Peter Pan narrative, and how the book, the undisneyfied version, the original book of Peter Pan is kind of creepy.
Right.
I mean, from a different perspective, it can look kind of creepy, and it's dealing with some very mature themes. There's a recognition that as a child, there is a sense of wonder, there's a sense of innocence, but eventually you're going to realize that there's a sense of powerlessness. And if you're fundamentally powerless, then the world is a scary place. And you realize that, some kids realize that pretty soon. And I think that this is really interesting to me, because if you look at the original 79 Alien, it's like just chock full with mother imagery. It's just that is sort of one of the major themes of the first film is that, and then motherhood. That gets
played with in the subsequent, not in 86, well, definitely in 86 and all the way through to Resurrection.
Absolutely. And of course, the counterbalance to motherhood is childhood. And this is what Holly's decided to tackle. What does it mean? Where are the themes of childhood that are horrific? And I think he's really sort of nailing home this, I guess the horror of childhood. And the things about childhood that are scary, the realization that you grow up, and what does that mean? I think that there's definitely a theme with that, with Nibs thinking that she's pregnant. This is sort of childhood imaginative play. But of course, we can't have that. We need these kids to be superhuman. We can't have their childlike wonder around. They're going to need to grow up. Right. And so there's a sense in which Boy Genius wants them to be forever children, like the Lost Boys. And then you've got other characters in this story saying, you're no longer children. Stop pretending. You're adults now. Try to act like adults. And this is torture. This is sort of a tension that's creating torture for these children.
It made me think about what you just said was making me think about different kinds of species. There was a time when my daughter was very into sharks and marine mammalogy, all kinds of marine stuff. And so we learned a lot about sharks. And sharks, when they give birth, the baby shark has has the majority of the knowledge it's ever going to have. It started his instinctual animal. It's very smart. It's very intelligent.
Yeah.
They are abandoned at birth. There's no mothering, right? They're birthed and that's it. They're off on their own. They do learn over time, but the primary basis of their behavior is patterned and programmed in. Whereas mammals and most mammalian species, mothering is a very important maternal and familial bonds, not just maternal, but all family, siblings, fathers, physical closeness, play, the ability to touch and to communicate. We learn over time. And being a child being put into a synthetic body that has a battery that lasts for 2 years and, that you can knock down walls of steel. That's a really wild thing to do to human psychology.
Well, it's a wild thing to do to human psychology, but it's sort of putting human psychology on the back burner, as we see in this episode. This is advanced tech,
right? This
is proprietary knowledge. These things are commodities. These things are new toys. These things are owned by a company, right? And we need to develop these. We do this quick. We don't worry about making mistakes. These are not delicate eggs, to use the metaphor that we've used a lot before. So yeah, we're seeing the childhood, the concern for childhood is clearly a low priority in this tech company.
Listen to me, both of you. This unit is going to be smiling and waving from the stage 3 weeks from now. And when the information architects of the Five talk to her over canapes and cocktails, I want her to be calm and charming, just like the others. We've come too far to fail now just because you don't have the stomach to bring this home.
I won't do it.
Steve, do you have the stomach to bring this home?
Oh, yeah. Going back to what Anthony was talking about, I think it's a really interesting concept. But so how do we reconcile the Joe, Marcy, Wendy back and forth, where Joe has this idea that maybe family can be restored,
right?
And she is,
supreme naivete on Joe's part.
And despite her childlike, state, she balks at that. And is that because for her that's just a collection of memories, and this is learned, what she's going through right now is the closest thing to nurture she's got, or is there something else to that, in your opinion?
And I think a big part of the story and the template that Holly is using with Peter Pan is Wendy's becoming. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with Marilyn Arpakila, our favorite resident Tolkien scholar, and that's available for on the season pass and for regular subscribers. But we talk about the historical context of Peter Pan and some of the central messaging of Peter Pan. And Marilyn brings that up at the end of the conversation, which is at the end of Peter Pan, this whole cycle repeats because Wendy's daughter is the next victim of Peter Pan, so to speak.
Right.
Which in some ways, it's weird because Peter Pan exists on these two levels. There's this wonderful childhood story about magic and being out in the world and stuff. And then there's this very deep, scary psychological thing where there are people rummaging around in your dreams and, killing off kids that age too soon. And but a big part of the story is Wendy becoming an adult, and that ceaseless thing that mammal psychologies do is we age in our bodies over time. Our psychology and our physiology is built to progress in this linear fashion.
Yeah, I think Joe might be naive, but I think that there's something fundamental about being human that requires community, family, however you want to construe it. Mm-hmm. This has been her primary motivation for most of the show, is to find her family. And she has made many decisions to pursue Joe, to create a relationship with Joe, and to reconnect with Joe. That I think Kirsch is underplaying the importance of that. And it very well could be that she kind of is not as interested in Joe anymore because she has Joe, and now she's kind of interested in mothering this new xenomorph. But I think by the end of the episode, she's starting to see, the Peter Pan mythology can't control me. It doesn't confine me. It could be that maybe the Peter Pan mythology is the problem. Maybe I'm not Wendy. So I think that there's something about Wendy that Joe understands that Kirsch does not.
And I think that's that pivotal scene later on, then that confrontation between Wendy and Sylvia.
Right.
Where they're debating the necessity of feelings and being a human being, and the messiness and the heaviness of, oh God, it would be so easy just to do away with all of that stuff.
Well, and interesting that you talked about sort of the cycle that the Peter Pan novel goes with Wendy, becoming a mother, and that's part of her growing up, and then her daughter becomes and so here we have. So what Anthony was kind of bringing up is like, okay, well, maybe she's less interested in Joe's because she's moving towards a more maternal instinct that she's having now with this xenomorph, and that's it's still the longing for family, but family maybe has changed in her mind, and that's kind of the idea of like, if you're going to raise a family, the whole idea of like, you sort of leave maybe your other family behind because now your value systems have changed or your priorities have changed, and while family serves its purpose, creating a family is now a new form of purpose, and so there could be that kind of a pull, right, where it's like, I don't want to leave because I've got a new family, so to speak, and maybe it is a motherhood instinct, and then it kind of makes you wonder too. It's like, if you just follow the Peter Pan narrative, is the xenomorph now replacing sort of the Wendy as far as the object of interest for
right.
like a boy K.
And I would add a dimension to that too with Joe. Joe's not relating to Wendy as who Wendy is now, as a person with a whole set of her own experiences. Joe is trying to protect this nostalgic idea of their family prior to all this tragedy.
Right. And he doesn't know her. I mean, she died, as far as he knew, very young. And so
exactly.
Like, he was a different person then too.
Right.
So he's kind of overlaying that which cannot be replicated, to try to almost fill in some of his own,
guilt.
Blanks. Yeah. Guilt, regret, just even sadness. Like, well, I never had this opportunity to have a sister because it was taken from me, and now I could do it. It's like, but no, but not really.
Right. Yeah. Not she's a product. Go ahead.
Right. And so it also creates another issue too, where it's just like, do you even know what you're talking to? You're treating this individual as a memory, and you're talking to a memory. And that memory may have very little to do with what this individual is now and will be.
Exactly. Anthony, you had a note in here in our outline about Joe's perspective being the proxy for the viewers.
Yeah, I don't think I realized this until this episode, that Joe is such an important character for this story. He's the only one, I guess, of the main characters that we're seeing through his eyes and empathizing with him. He's the one that has the most altruistic connection to Wendy / Marcy, and he has no superpowers. Right. He doesn't have a magic arm. He doesn't have a magic brain. So his power is that he happens to have a brotherly relationship to maybe one of the most powerful characters on the board. And so, there's a lot of rivalry set up in this show. And like, I mean, you just go down the line. There's tons of rivalries set up in this show. And the one that is really interesting to me is the Boy K Joe rivalry, because think about they're both a little bit boyish in the way that they present. Neither one of them is unintelligent. One just happens to be a trillionaire, and the other one has sort of a class difference with the other. But they both have a big brother relationship with Marcy / Wendy. And I think at some point they're on a collision course. Like, who's going to win the soul of Marcy?
Right.
And I think at this point you see the Boy K's Peter Pan mythology cracking. I think she's starting to wonder, like, what if I say no? What would that give me power? What if this is a yes place? What if that's all bullshit? She is a superhuman intelligence. I guess the question is, and maybe she will become someone who can travel the universe and leave humanity behind. But at this point, she is still being nurtured in a way that will affect who she becomes. Because that's just the nature of childhood. And so for me, if we're going to be ruled by AI, I would much rather have someone like Joe nurturing than someone like Boy K nurturing. Anyway, I think for the audience, Joe's concerns are our concerns. And so he's a really important person to have in this show.
Right. When it comes to nitpicking on the show a little bit for some of the mechanics, I have one big one, which we'll talk later, but there's another one, which is right here, which is, why would you let Arthur leave the island? No NDA is going to stop Wayland Yutani from scooping him up and putting him to work for them. So I was like kind of baffled by the fact that they're just kicking him to the curb. But that certainly... are
you talking about Arthur?
Yeah, talking about Arthur. Yep.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if there isn't a a second stage to this plan.
I never got the sense he was getting off that island.
Right.
No, I get the sense that like, you're fired. You've made things difficult for us. We're not going to deal with your insubordination. If you don't leave today, you might be shot. I kind of felt like he's going to get shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He got shot by a different gun.
Or the boat's going to sink, or, something's going to happen with this guy.
You can't have him walking around out there with all this stuff in his head.
That's right. That's right.
And then you had another note about Sylvia and Arthur Anthony, about a little bit of graduate pull back here. We're swimming around a lot of Severance content in this show.
Huh. I think that there is, and this is completely headcanon on my part, but I think that there is something of a Mrs. Robinson, Dustin Hoffman relationship between these two.
For sure.
I think that he clearly was necessary for the development of this program. And I don't quite understand their relationship. And the only way I can make sense of it is that she seduced him, and she seduced him
for the project.
This guy was necessary for the project, and clearly Dame Sylvia is a creature of Boy K. I could totally
and of her own. Can I add in? Of her own objectives as well. She is committed to this transhuman project.
She is, but if she had her druthers, she would do it differently. But she never says no. She never says no. And so she is, she's a henchman. And I think that she is more loyal to Boy K than she is to Arthur.
Interesting.
And I do think that the age difference matters, because it sort of kind of comes with our mothering theme in terms of sort of like a Freudian sort of approach.
Yeah.
I could totally see a backstory where he's like, we need that guy to develop this technology. I'm going to need you to seduce him. And then the seduction just kind of continues, and he needs a love interest on the island. And so it's a long con with her. And I think that finally breaks this episode. Like, he's going to leave the island and she's going to stay behind. I guess this means they're over, right?
She shed not a tear as he left the lab.
That's right. And she's always, whenever they are in conflict, she's speaking with her own words, but in the voice of Boy K in all of these conversations.
Super interesting.
So I think that she is definitely going for the long con here.
I like it. All right. So we get a pretty wicked needle drop. We get Tessellate by Alt J. Drops in, and then we get one of the aircraft flying through a cityscape, and then Boy K meets with Yutani, and Moro proposes a plan. And then we have a lovely little tete-a-tete in the elevator between Moro and Kirsch.
So good. So good.
Yeah. This music was so good. It was the perfect sort of Succession-esque song to drop us into this scene. Tessellate is an interesting word. It means to cover or arrange a surface with shapes. So it's like a mosaic, so that there's no gaps or overlap. So it's recurring, repeating patterns, like on a rug or on a tile floor or something like that.
Or like a Catan board, is what I was thinking. In this, you get this sort of a negotiation scene, and it's all trying to, establish power and kind of move things around, and that's how I kind of pulled some of that imagery.
Yeah, I love that. See, that's one of my favorite scenes out of the whole season so far, is just that ship flying with that music. It was exquisite. And then we get that beautiful setup shot of the, once Boy K sits down, we get a nice wide of the conference table. And again, very Severance vibes to me in this scene. But we have this interaction between Boy K and Yutani. And Yutani totally gets played. She came in very underprepared and not ready for Boy K's toe picking.
Who could be? I mean, it would unsettle almost anyone.
You learn about, power positions all the time, right? There's the Cobra. You get your hands up. You got to be bigger. You put yourself bigger than the than your opponent or whoever you're negotiating with. And I mean, he gets wider with the toes because of the way that the camera is shot. But it's like, it is such a different. I mean, there is. Again, if you start looking at like I said, there's like I think it's called the Cobra, where your hands are behind your head and you kind of create like a hood if you're in a negotiation, so that way you look like you're relaxing, but ultimately you're making yourself larger. When I see him laid out like that and splayed with the feet, I think of this scorpion imagery that we've already been introduced with.
It's the ultimate man spreading
completely.
But like how a scorpion flows and how a scorpion kind of like you can kind of see the feet almost like the pinchers, and they're just,
I'm going to distract you over here. I'm going to wave something around. Hey, look at this. And then I'm going to hit you over there.
Yeah. So that, which is, goes with the xenomorph as well. So
there was a great interview on the official podcast with Ugla. I think, it was with the director, Ugla Hochstetter. And she was talking about the actor. I don't have his name up in front of me right off the top, but
the negotiator,
not the negotiator, but Samuel Blenkin came to her and said, "Hey, what if I did this and that?" And so they improvised that whole thing of him getting up on the table and doing all that kind of weird stuff.
Which actor is Samuel Blenkin?
Boy Cavalier.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and just totally leaning into the just balls out, man spreading, complete psychopathy of, I don't know, I'm going to use that word. It's probably not the right word, but just the craziness of Boy K, and how Samuel Blenkin is just really leaning into this hubristic little shit.
Okay, let me ask you this. It seems like his trump card is to say, okay, fine. You can have him back.
Beautiful employ.
But we're going to honor the pre-existing quarantine period.
Mm-hmm.
What am I to make of the? What is he gaining by delaying the transfer of the xenomorph / aliens? 6
weeks of study.
I get the sense that whatever his plan was only needed that much time.
Okay. What do you think his plan is?
Well, I think there's the study aspect, but I think that there is. Yeah. I mean, he's got right now, he has one of his subjects communicating with another one of his subjects, and that's a huge breakthrough.
Okay.
And go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and sure, you can have him back, but by that time I might already have control.
Or you can have him back. I will have studied them, and what you'll get is the charred remains of them. Mm-hmm. Or something like that.
Right. Well, then there's the other side of it too, is like what happens shortly afterwards. Well, we get a face hugger dropping facehuggers don't hug for no reason. That's a new specimen.
You mean it's not a free hugs situation at the local street fair?
They do not hug in vain. This is a new specimen was created. So if you want to take inventory, you got extras now. So there is that element too that suggests it's like,
which is
night tense.
Which is what I was going to bring up is a derivative species that wasn't on the Maginot. Is that now who owns that? I own that because I bred it, not you. You didn't bring it back from deep space. So sorry.
And what happens if something during quarantine goes askew? Well,
exactly.
Is there another protocol that says, "Oh, we have extended quarantine"? And
right. But I think it was a brilliant outplayed maneuver. He dropped that perfectly with the sort of the thoughts and prayers line as well. He just had her boxed in from even before walking into that room. He had her already boxed up. So, but folks have been saying, oh, is Boy K really all that smart? And did he really, do all this stuff or whatever? And I think I can say, maybe Holly hasn't shown us enough of Boy K's genius.
Well, let's say this. He's smart enough to convince people that he's smart. And that is a smartness in and of itself, right?
How to win friends and influence people.
Or how to manipulate people.
Right. Well, that's the joke. That's the joke I was making.
Right. I mean, I think that there's something there. Like, I think he probably has a certain amount of acumen. I don't know if he's, it's always like you're never going to be an expert at everything.
Right.
It could be that he is smart. It could be that it doesn't really matter where his deficiencies are if he can surround himself with people that fill in his deficiencies. Maybe he's good at that.
And pay them shit, and then they do a shit job for him ultimately.
And smart enough to sort of maintain a power position.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I think that there's tremendous hubris there.
Yeah.
Like when you have godlike money, you start to think that you're God and you're not. And that makes you really stupid in other areas of your life. So I think that
and you surround yourself with people that aren't going to leave the island based on some sort of moral high ground. And if there are those people, you dismiss them. And that's so you can not just creating sort of a yes man sort of surrounding, but like if you always employ people that aren't as smart as you always get to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And you can get lazy with that. You can actually be smart, but not exercising your intellect because you've created an environment where you don't have to. So you do run the risk of getting outsmarted because you haven't honed those skills, or you just or have an insulation around you where, like to Anthony's point, those gaps are filled, and you've done that very cleverly, and you've done it with people that are loyalists.
But if you do it long enough, you stop seeing the gaps. It's like if you do feel like you're God in your own world, you're constantly going to underestimate a lower class or a technology or a child in a way, or an alien species. You're going to underestimate these things because you've had such a high degree of control in your life for so long. You start to lose the imagination of what it might be like to lose that control. And
we talked.
Go ahead.
We talked. I forget which podcast it was, but a earlier episode we talked a little bit about how Boy K's environment and context that he's created. I want synths so that I have somebody smarter than me to talk to. But by the very nature of what you're saying, of his construct of his world, will always disallow anyone ever being smarter than him, because his narrative of his first person, I'm the hero of my own story, is that there is no one smarter than me.
Well, here's the thing, and this is really stupid, because you think if you're creating a being that can be smarter than you, that being is going to outsmart you in ways you can't anticipate.
Oh, there you go.
And
even better.
You're not ready for this. You're just
Wendy,
not
you're
ready
not ready for Wendy.
Yeah, you're not ready for Wendy, right?
Yeah.
Well, or you're not ready for the xenomorph.
That's what I was just going to say. And so there's this idea too, I think, that culturally, you go, well, here's this creature from another place, and I don't understand its language. And it seems like it's just motivated by savagery because all I see is it's killing. So therefore, I have to be morally and intellectually superior. So conquest is not an issue. I can control these. I can take this over because, I mean, just look at us together. Now, that is a very, obtuse way to look at another creature or culture, but I found there was some sort of real world examples where.
Look, if you unleash chaos on the world, it's going to come back and bite you at some point. I mean, you're not always going to be able to climb up the ladder and arrive on top. Sometimes people benefit from these kinds of major risks, and sometimes they get taken down by them.
I've been thinking a lot about accelerationism as a tactic for political and social change. And there was in Andor, obviously, Luthen is an accelerationist. Dedra uses accelerationist techniques or tactics to, try to incite another group to do things. And that's the thing is, and we go back to Littlefinger, Chaos is a Ladder. You can't, once you start to unleash those forces or instigate those forces, there's no predictability in the outcome and whether you can actually arise on top. I guess maybe that's, sort of the surfing that Littlefinger does is I'm going to surf these waves and see if I can catch the right, chaos wave to ride myself to the top, but I may get, crashed and held down in the process.
Yeah, I think that's basically, I think you've just choreographed the end of the season. That's how I see it.
Right.
Look at you. The almost human, self-hating machine. How you must envy me.
Sure. Yesterday's model, the incredibly irrelevant robot. Who wouldn't want to be you?
Babu Sise and Timothy Oliphant this is my absolute favorite scene of the year.
I didn't know that I needed a synth cyborg pissing match, but now that I've got it, that's all I want to see. I want to see another 45 minutes of this conversation. And of course, I was talking before about this show setting up a lot of different rivalries.
Yes.
I want to see the eye showdown with almost anyone. I want to see the eye xenomorph fight again, but I absolutely need to see the final showdown between these two.
Yeah. And interesting the signaling that happens. Kirsch definitely signals to Moro that he knows that Moro is talking to Slightly. And then Moro threatens, hey, see you soon. Right. And that's an obvious play. Okay. Have Yutani, predicting that Yutani is going to try to invade Neverland. That's a straight up, like, if you're not protecting yourself on your island from another corporate power, you're just stupid and don't belong in that position.
I missed this. How do we know that Kirsch knows that there's a contact? I mean, in what way does he reveal to Moro that he knows this?
I have to go back to the dialogue, but he says something about, oh God, what did he say? He says something about like making friends or talking to other kids or something.
All right,
like that.
I'm going to have to rewatch that.
Yeah. It's there though. It's definitely there. And then Moro, clearly threatening to attack Neverland. I'll see you soon, but oh, maybe I've got you all hyped up and thinking about I'm going to come from this direction, but I'm really going to come from that direction or something. So
yeah, it's not just a sort of a my dad's bigger than your dad, or I'm going to punch you in the face kind of thing. It's like, we both know that there's a chessboard. And you thought you had a little secret, and now I know the secret.
Yep.
And that to me, thank you for pointing that out, because I feel like I understand better Kirsch's non-reaction when he's on the plane and he's seen the basically the destruction by the fly, and he's seen everything that's going on in the lab. And I think what Boy K says, is everything okay?
Affirmative.
He just completely is nonplussed. And I was like, what does he get? What's happening here? He just is sort of exuding ultimate confidence that he's got the game in hand.
Yeah. Steve, what did you make of Oliphant and Babu Sise here?
Yeah, I watched that scene a couple times. One, we couldn't quite hear what was going on, so we had to turn it up. But it was just worth watching the whole way because Heather was like, "What did he say?" I'm like, I was about to say, I'm like, "Nah, you gotta hear it. You gotta hear them say it." So this is what I've been sort of waiting for, is this sort of the class battle. Like, this is just such a it was just there, I think, since the very beginning when when the definitions come out, and I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, because it's like a classic situation of, look, the ruling class wants the everybody else, the working class, to fight amongst themselves so that they can be distracted while this other thing moves on, right? And then so that you have that at play. Or at least setting up for that to be at play. But then you also have now, like you said, these guys know a lot about what's going on, and they're pretty deeply involved. And the idea of Kirsch I find very fascinating, because I don't fully understand the and maybe you guys have, maybe these are some of the gaps I have in my alien lore.
Did you catch up on your movie watching?
Not yet.
Okay.
But the synth, so how self-motivated are synths?
They're fully conscious as far as we're aware. And they even have fear, because Bishop says in Aliens, when he's going out to the communications tower, he's like, I may not be afraid, but I'm not stupid.
Right. Now, is that,
self-preservation, maybe not fear, but self-preservation.
Gotcha. Yeah, they don't want to perish.
Okay. Yeah.
So the idea with Kirsch is is a synth able to, I guess what I'm going to get at, is a synth able to sort of act on their own and go against their directives, so to speak, or are they somehow bound by programming?
We're that hasn't been explored in that way. It hasn't been really fully interrogated. Okay,
because I think that's an important aspect of because I mean, you get the idea of, Moro, almost human. I love that idea too, right? So it's a mockery. It's mocking the sort of that emotional state, right? Which is like, if only you could be all of that, wouldn't that be something? And then go ahead. So it does seem like to be. But so there's twofold, right? It's like mocking the idea that, you've got sadness, like that's a weakness, right?
Yeah.
And kind of playing at the fatherhood angle, and so poking and picking at the scabs of humanity that are there, but also suggesting that's a limitation as well as it is a goal. So it's an interesting element. And then, of course, the insult is just, well, you're just an obsolete model, which is an amazing bit of shade to throw.
Yeah, I think that there's a child. There's. I think it goes along with the childhood theme. It's like old toy.
Yes,
right. It's boy genius, right? He's just a child at heart, right? And he's just playing with toys. They're really expensive toys, but he's playing with them. What do children do? They get interested in other toys. What happens to the old ones, right? So I think that's kind of
Pixar makes a big movie franchise about him.
Hey, I think have either of you seen Alien Romulus?
Yeah. We did a whole huge podcast series on it last year.
Relative to Steve's question about how much agency does a synth have?
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil that movie.
We can. We're full spoilers here.
Steve hasn't seen that movie, I don't think.
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't want to spoil that movie, but I do think that question becomes interesting in light of in light of that movie. So I do think that it's more complicated than this show has told us so far. I don't know. See, I don't know if Kirsch's loyalty to Boy K is a prime directive or not. And I think that maybe Alien Romulus has some things to say about that.
Right. And I think that's a big question hanging over the whole thing is what controls does Boyke have over Kirsch? We don't know. But a lot of people would be, I think, surprised that there isn't some sort of power kill word that, these what's the line from Westworld, cease all functions or something like that. There isn't some sort of code word to shut Kirsch down, but we haven't seen that in the Alien verse. So,
right.
Yeah.
Huh.
All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, sorry, I'm going to marker that. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll get back into the episode. All right, being grown up sucks. Dame Sylvia removes Nibs' trauma, and Wendy promptly fucks up the plan. Boyke reads some more from Peter Pan, and Smee and slightly commiserate about the reality of being grown-ups, and then slightly unconvincingly tries to convince Joe to come see a surprise. While she slept, she had a dream. She dreamt that Neverland had come too near, and that a strange boy had broken through from it. He did not alarm for her, for she thought she had seen him before in the faces of many women who have no children. Perhaps he is to be found in the faces of some mothers also. But in her dream, he had rent the film that obscures Neverland, and she saw Wendy and John and Michael peering through the gap.
This was the quote that made me realize, Holly's playing with the counterbalance between motherhood and childhood.
Okay.
Because motherhood is clearly a major theme of the franchise.
Right.
But has it really explored childhood in sort of a more direct way? So I like that he's doing this. I think that there's a question about children growing up super fast, right? I think that's what the xenomorphs do. Like very good point. That's a really good point. Embryotic monsters to like full grown man eaters in like 20 minutes or something.
This episode alone has gotten so much larger.
Right. And I think that there's something there about Wendy's naivete because, she forms a bond with this tiny creature. And in the same way that Joe is sort of underestimating what she's becoming, Wendy is underestimating what the xenomorph is becoming.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, it's like it's like Mike Tyson, you see. It's like,
does he pick feet?
He's gonna get himself an illegal tiger. He's gonna put the tiger in his house. And eventually the tiger is gonna become a tiger.
Right.
And
the scorpion's going to be a scorpion. Why'd you sting me? Because I'm a scorpion.
That's right. So I think that there's something about that with the xenomorph. It's like, yeah, you learned to speak its language and you created something of a bond with it. This doesn't mean it's a pet,
Absolutely.
So anyway, I think there's a lot going on with this theme.
Yeah. Steve, it does suck to be a grown up, doesn't it?
Yeah, that nothing. That's the moral of this whole story, I think, is what it comes down to. Yeah, no, it's a really. I've been taken by the the behaviors of like how certain because how different versions of these kids are aging in different ways, right? And it's kind of fascinating how like there's some that are just still super young and like just late bloomers. Like I like that idea, right? That you might even have like, even though they're kind of implanted at the same time-ish, you have late bloomers and you have maybe more advanced movements as well. And so I think that's a good element to have because I think it creates a tension amongst the sort of these lost boys, right? Because Slightly's having to grow up really fast, not because necessarily he's, maybe maturing, but because he's threatened.
Yeah.
Right. And he's,
he's become his mother's protector at this stage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he, in a way, he's like almost being groomed, right, by Moro in a way. And so there's this, so you see this, it's that accelerated aging, but not necessarily, like his experience is, he's getting more mature experiences than maybe his maturity is able to manage.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And that creates, and that will leave an imprint on what kind of an adult one would be. Right. And so then you have other ones that are maybe a little more protected in their youthfulness, and they just, and they're bummed out because there's all this, people are just, they're all going through puberty around them and they're not there yet. And so there's, they just want to throw rocks in the water and things like that. And so it's like, there's this really fascinating tension of how people age. And sometimes it's not purely nature, right? It could be a nurture aspect, right? So like, whereas Wendy, she's definitely getting these experiences that might be moving her towards aging. She feels like she's maturing maybe a little more, like hers is maybe much more natural and organic in some ways, other than, like I said, like a Slightly who's forced to grow up, and, but he's not old enough to know how to deal with it. And so he's like a perfect way to be manipulated. And it's funny, like, so you've got, Boy K, who's like, oh, he's manipulating these people. But so is Moro. I mean, Moro he's found, he's taken advantage of this childlike nature. And if you put it back to that rivalry notion, he has strong feelings about Kirsch, who he thinks is this obsolete old toy, and he's sort of the replacement. Well, he's not really keen on that, which is going to replace him either. So he's, there is that sort of preservation that's like, like in Toy Story, you want to kill the new toy and get rid of Buzz Lightyear.
I think there's some interesting problems that this creates in terms of a sci-fi. I think that philosophically and sort of medically speaking, biologically speaking, your consciousness is in large part a product of your physiology. There's something that happens at puberty that changes your sense of self. And now what we've done is we've taken these children and we've eliminated the physiology. So then the question is, what is this thing? Like, what is child development when physiologically the child will never develop? And I think that's kind of uncharted water. This is sort of one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of sci-fi, but it's kind of magic, because is this really even possible? I think that there's something about these children being forever children that Holly's got his arms around.
Right.
But so far we haven't really seen the consequences to the physiology play out well enough for my tastes. And
I would argue that, especially teenager years, and these are sort of preteens, but that's the most emotional time of our life in a lot of ways. Where is it our hippocampus? I don't know. There's parts of our brain that are enlarged to be able to take in experiences and form memories. That's why, listening to classic rock hits me in a way now that no new music can ever hit, because of the nostalgia. And that first love or that second love, whatever those relationships and those bonds are so strong. And why friendships from that time period tend to last more. And so now you've taken you're simulating the physiology, the chemicals, the endorphins, the all the other neuro things that are going on in your brain, and you're trying to simulate them with this consciousness. But in sort of a Frankenstein kind of way, it's not gonna be like you expect it's gonna be.
Well, and what they've done is, at least Prodigy's sort of mission statement is they're thinking, well, if we want to go to the next stage of human evolution, we need a human mind in one of these machines, but it can't be an adult mind because they've lost a certain amount of flexibility and creativity,
neuroplasticity.
You need childlike imagination to really achieve the potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is we need a particular kind of mind to get the most out of this kind of technology. What it hasn't done is it hasn't told me what is this kind of technology going to do to the childlike mind.
Exactly.
And I think we're getting closer with nibs. We're starting to get like, okay, well, what does this Frankenstein's monster actually look like?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that'll be further developed by the end of the season or next season or something.
Next season, yeah. Steve, are you picking up Severance vibes from this sort of erasing memory stuff?
Yeah. There's definitely that. That sense of that it gets you almost got like a little Men in Black going on too. You got the whole
right.
Yeah, and in some cases it's it's a device that can be helpful to move the narrative along. But I also like to the point of like we don't know what that's going to do long term or if that like how erased is erased.
What was that movie about the memory eraser where you could like? We talked about it on one of our 11Z's movie podcasts. Spotless Mind, was it?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, that was a really interesting thing where you can overwrite these memories, but there's still these echoes or is there something more to the memory than just erase that data block?
They're not just erasing her memory. At one point they say, okay, erase the memory, learn from the mistake. Now dial down these particular emotions so she doesn't experience her past trauma in the same way. Let's learn from our mistakes. We need a 2.0, right?
Right.
And what Arthur says at this point is, that goes against everything I thought I was doing here.
Right.
And there's something fundamental about memory that creates identity, but they're not just doing that. They're fundamentally changing a personality by pushing buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they even alluded to that earlier in the season, right? When they're talking about like they wanted to slow down or not slow down. They found like a happy medium for accelerating their aging, like or at least their mental aging. Like so, they wanted to keep them young, but not like they didn't want to sit there at like a super young phase only. So I think they had already talked about manipulating the sort of just that evolutionary process so that they'll age, but they'll age at the pace that we dictate. Because there was still advantages to keeping them young, but not so young that they were kind of worthless.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I think maybe we're fast forwarding to a different scene, and you can postpone this if you want, David. But I'm curious about Toodles. Does he changed his name to Isaac? Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Earlier.
Yeah.
Two episodes ago, he wanted it because he is the oldest of them all. Actually,
so,
at pre-consciousness transfer, he was the oldest.
So with Isaac, he kind of gets face eaten.
Yeah. Yep. We're like one scene away from that, so we can go ahead and jump. I mean.
Oh yeah, I'll save my ammunition for then.
All right. Well, the next scene is How to Train Your Xenomorph, and it's pretty. There's not a lot going on here. Joe, Siberian, and Rashidi go out on exposition patrol, and then Wendy spends some more time with her new friend, and Kirsch sends Toodles to his death. This was the most awkward scene. So this episode for me had some of the best scenes of this season, and then it had like one of the most clunker scenes. And I know that Joe is naive, and Siberian even calls him on it, just saying, hey, stop it. We know what you're trying to drive at. So his dumb exposition talk sort of works in a way, but this one felt the most clunky for me. I don't know if either of you guys felt what you felt about Patrol.
Yeah, I think that this might have been what I was referring to, and I felt like this felt like TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it. Of all the other ways that like science fiction requires exposition, and it's okay in a lot of cases because it's like, look,
that's how you handle it. Yeah.
And engineering minds are going to talk about what their engineering mind says in a way that seems very straightforward, and because they're just engineering minds. And so like it works in these kinds of environments. But in this, I really had a hard time buying all of the interactions. And it felt like this was like such a means to an end to sort of, in case you're not paying attention kind of a thing. And it like, okay, it serves its purpose, but I wasn't crazy about it.
Right. Well, let's jump forward to The Fly in a scene with no dialogue whatsoever. Toodles. Before we do that, Kirsch, when he contacts Toodles, he asks if Slightly is with him and then sends him off. So to what level is Kirsch manipulating this? And was there any sort of premeditation on Kirsch's part, knowing that Toodles might somehow end up in a bad situation? Or was it a totally innocent accident of fate? I don't know. I know some people out in the world are speculating about that.
I mean, this was like, of all, I mean, again, it's Toodles / Isaac, say what you want to do with, with his level of maturity and blah, blah, blah. But there is just this element of like, bro, for real? you're just going to prop it with your foot and,
You're right.
and hope, and it's like, I'm like, really?
Well, he's a kid, right? He's trying to work it out.
Sure. But, and I guess, I guess this goes to like, we talked about hubris, and we talked about the Dunning-Kruger effect, and like there is something to be said for like maybe a closer to a teenage mind, right? Mm-hmm. Who is promoted and therefore now is like they're the expert, and so if there's anybody that's going to cut corners, it might be that individual, because they're like, look at like, because you're again talking about like the capacity for maturity versus the maturity you have to deal with, and it's like he's still a kid, but he's being asked to be responsible for feeding these things that could destroy civilization. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, I wouldn't let my son take the garbage out if I thought, ooh, there might be something sharp in that one, And so there is that element of like, okay, look, I understand these are like super kids and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But that has a limitation, right? I mean, they're still vulnerable and they're still susceptible to certain things. So so it does make you wonder: how much of this is experimentation? How much of this is planned?
I'm thinking back to a podcast, Anthony, once where you like literally disconnected and were gone from the recording. We were in the middle of something and then you were suddenly gone because. I don't know. I want to talk around it if you don't want to talk about it, but the dog got loose.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you keep animals in your house, you're just going to deal with chaos from time to time.
Right. And it
really was my son. I think my son left the door open, and then the dog got in the neighbor's yard. And all of a sudden it's like, now I'm going to deal with this. So
it was John, and I think maybe it was John and Marilyn and you and I can't remember the makeup. And then you were just gone, and we were like, we were trying to figure out what to do with the podcast.
So I think that there's something here with Kirsch that is maybe we don't know yet, but Kirsch was the person that decided that egg opened up because Boy K is in the room and it's sensing Boy K's physiology.
Right. It can hear the heartbeat and feel the warmth and the electromagnetic.
So one way that we're going to keep the face hugger sedated is we're only going to have non-human physiology in this room.
Correct.
So it's an interesting conceit for the show, because what it does is it makes sure that you've got kids feeding the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What we didn't know until this episode is that there's a fly that doesn't eat biological matter.
That eats metal.
Right? There's a fly that eats, mineral or whatever, which, of course, there's just no way that fly isn't going to eventually menace this entire project. And,
Got a whole episode named after it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we found out is, okay, it very well could be that Wendy is impervious to any of these, creepy crawlers, but there's one that will eat her face.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Speaking of face eating, in a scene with no dialogue whatsoever, Toodles meets his untimely demise at the hands of the fly. And we get a little voiceover from Boy K again. The boys on the island vary, of course, in numbers, according as they get killed, and so on. When they seem to be growing up, it's really hard to read this prose. This is a very the pattern and the pacing of the Peter Pan prose is really interesting.
It's kind of musical, right? I think it probably requires to kind of get into the cadence of it before it kind of starts to flow off the tongue.
When they seem to be growing up, which is against the rules, Peter thins them out. So really great visual storytelling here. Very simple foreshadowing. Holly uses the camera moves and the shots to tell us everything we need to know about what's going on. I love the xenomorph sort of doing reps in his room. And it really makes you feel like this is a prison break movie hidden inside a alien sci-fi show. And then the sheep. I just love this sheep.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a question. All right. So Wendy, because she has a reason to be in that room a lot. She's figured out how to speak the xenomorph's language, and they're interested in what they can learn about maybe both of the specimens in this process. But she's also super smart. So she realizes that there's not a big difference between the two specimens. Like, they're treating the xenomorph like a specimen, and now I see that I'm a specimen, right? Right. And if I'm a specimen, am I just in a different kind of cage? And of course, we see the foreshadowing of what happens to a cage when you put something super intelligent inside of a cage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what the fly does, what the image does, these things are kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen with Wendy and the xenomorph.
Steve, I can't remember how much of a horror fan you are.
I like it quite a bit.
Did this do it for you? The fly, because it was like putting it up his nose and all that stuff.
I love a good injection. It was because I was having this sort of like, because I had this first reaction, like, well, he's gonna be fine because he's a synth, right? And I'm like, well, we know some of these things don't attack.
And it was a great little tell when he was putting the things on the tray, because then when you go back, you're like, oh, what is the fly eating? It's non-organic material.
Exactly. Yeah. So which also kind of leans to the bro, for real. I mean, it's like if I was going to feed a wild animal something and it was like, this is Steven in bits, and I was just like putting that in there like, oh, that's what he likes to eat. He likes to eat little bits of Steven. I wonder if I should be concerned at all.
Right.
Oh, this guy likes to eat glasses.
All right. I don't know if this is the time for this question yet, but with Isaac, do they just reprint his body?
It's a really good question, because how much of his central processor memory storage, what was damaged that can't be rebooted, or do they have a download of him?
Yeah, you would think that they just have duplicate. They just have his personality on file, right?
Right, I would think so.
And then they print a new body, and then like they print him out in the same way. It's sort of the same version of him as if he had just did the transfer.
Which gets into a really great, really greatly terrible 2-season sci-fi show called Altered Carbon. I don't know if either of you saw that.
No.
Mm-mm.
So season 2 was horrifically bad, and season 1 was passable and really had some really, really great, interesting sci-fi concepts. But basically, your consciousness can be downloaded, transferred, beamed out on space, out into space somewhere, to, between a space station and the planet. So you literally could be on the planet and go, oh, I'm going to go visit my Nana up on the space station. Rather than physically moving, you beam your consciousness to that other location.
Right.
Oh, you're a criminal? Oh, well, we put you, we box you up and we put you away for a long time. And it's a really conceptually really interesting television show.
I have to check out Altered Carbon.
So where were we? I kind of got lost there talking about Altered Carbon.
We were talking about whether they could just reprint
That's
Isaac
right, yeah.
in a new, they can print his body. And I don't know if it's like they've got some special kind of lithium battery that they've only got a certain amount of, ore for it. Or maybe that came from a different planet, so that makes the battery super long. Maybe they've got some kind of in-world limitation, the amount of bodies that they can print.
Right. How much time is there a golden hour for, are those enzymes slowly eating away and are going to damage the hard drive at a point where he's unrecoverable?
I mean, it does go ahead.
Well, if they are able to sort of just recreate him, it does change the stakes, right? And it does. I mean, it changes the stakes for these individuals. Also begs the question: it's like, well, how often have they done it? I mean, and it's like you just go in and you just erase the part of his memory where he is, killed by a fly, so that way he just sort of picks up where he left off prior to that, and you can because if you can wipe out their memories, then sort of reboot them, then there's no reason to think that you can't just reimplant.
Right, and I think that changes the way I think about Boy K. Like he's been very cavalier with this technology, but if he views them as, well, we'll just print another one, and they'll lose the last couple months of their life, but big deal. We'll do it better the next time.
And is like a photocopy, is there degradation every time or does the
multiplicity?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know the technology that they're using. I don't think it's like a fax machine.
Thermal paper.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's pretty definitively in the books now that the image is not your friend. This is twice now that the image.
Did we ever think that the image?
People did. People were like, "Oh, we love the image."
Well, there was the debate.
It was a warning. It was a warning, not a distraction.
Whether it was a distraction or a warning.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing is like I still think it could have been a warning, but not necessarily because it's nice. Maybe it didn't want certain things out.
Sure. Like enemy of my enemy.
Right. So there are like it could be both and and I don't, but I still think it's okay to root for the image. I mean, there's not a lot of other things to root for at this point.
I never thought that tap was a warning. I thought you're trying to distract Space Ragabi so that she doesn't see that these bugs are getting out.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you're racist against images, though. So you already know that.
I am. You
assume the worst of all images.
In fact, I do.
Speciesist.
Now, I do think, okay, this creature is observing this. Creature is hyper intelligent. If this creature, we saw this creature get into a human body, we did not see the human body speak. But this image has been observing human behavior and human language for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what would happen if the image, let's say, got into Boy K's body.
Mm-hmm.
Would it immediately gain access to Boy K's
memories,
language? What kind of creature would we find?
Or is it just a skin mech? It's just literally operating the levers of the arms
that's
and
right.
The legs.
That's right. I guess I'm asking.
It hasn't learned enough to put on sunglasses.
I would like to see a season where the image
bottle season of the image
takes over this company. Like I really think that this image is going to be able to observe human behavior enough, learn human language, that if it did take over a human body, it would start to
It
move
could be
the
a
chess.
senator at worst.
Move
Could
the
be a
chess.
senator at worst.
Oh, it could be so much more than a senator. I mean, these guys are not the sharpest knives in the drawer.
It does direct the sheep to eat. Right after the fly finishes, it goes over and starts eating on its little hay donuts there.
Yeah, it gets a little hankering of its own.
Yeah,
that
it's
looked
like,
good.
oh, that was fun. I'm going to go have a snack now. But it knows how to operate the biomechanical nature of its host to keep the host alive.
I think we're underestimating this thing. I think if you put
Massively.
that image in a human body, it could beat you at chess. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I could beat me at chess. I'm not good at it, but
And which then gets into this relative
If you
nature.
put this image into a human body, Steve, it could beat you at Street Fighter 2
okay. Well, now that's a lot.
using Dalzim.
Okay, so you're saying that this thing is not just a super creature. This is like maybe the most highly intelligent creature of all time.
Exactly.
knows the combos. It has 7-8 arms. It can work the combos really well.
Yeah, that's the trick, right? They can play track and field on NES without having an advanced joystick.
All right, let's take one more break and then we'll come back and we'll finish up the episode. All right. What if you're the problem? Wendy confronts Dame Sylvia about...
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I was like, me?
Oh.
You're getting heckled.
Wendy confronts Dame Sylvia about nibs, but damns humanity in the process.
I don't want to be people anymore if this is what people are. Killing things. Taking them apart just to see what's inside. Who said? Kirsch. He said people get romantic about things. Feelings. But that we don't have to. We can get rid of all of that. All the sadness. All the madness. See the world for what it really is, not how it feels.
We have to work together, right? You have to tell me what's wrong so I can help you fix it.
What if you're what's wrong?
All right, sorry for the extra long clip there, but I had to get the front and back side of that conversation because there's so much packed in there, and I think Holly has multiple. What's the plural of theses?
You just said it.
Theses. Okay, yeah. Good. Didn't know. Thesum, thesi,
theses. Yeah,
theses, and I think he's got multiple theses in him in this show, but there's definitely one here, which is this idea about humanity's flaws and feelings. And I think back to Moro in episode 2, talking about, the what am I, but the worst, what am I left with, but the worst parts of myself. And he's a person who's very in control of his feelings. And then in episode 5, he has that great line about, the last thing we need is 10 more people with feelings running around here. And then here we have Wendy talking about, what Kirsch apparently is instructing her on, which is sort of the downfall of the species, which is our emotional life.
I think this is a really interesting scene, specifically from a religious studies perspective. One thing that religion does is it creates a meta narrative, sort of a mythology that gives your life meaning.
Right.
And
structure. For
this show and for Wendy, the Peter Pan mythology is functioning as a meta narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you see her start to lose faith in the narrative. Like, maybe this narrative doesn't define me. Maybe you should stop calling me Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should remember that my name is Marcy. In other words, I'm bigger than this category you put me into. Moreover, maybe Boy K isn't Peter Pan. And this whole, no is the first step to nothing. Maybe that false mnemonic is just kind of bullshit. And so I think that she's almost graduating beyond a childlike faith at this point. And she's kind of has to create her own system of thought. Not to say that Peter Pan won't continue to kind of be instructive for her, but it's not going to continue to control her.
Right.
And so when she moves beyond this narrative, she starts to look around her and think, well, who are the people that are reinforcing this power system? And Dame Sylvia seems like now she seems a little bit manipulative, whereas before she seemed like she had my best interest in mind. So I think she's starting to see the cage around her
100%.
And now
100%.
this super intellect is going to start working on getting out of the cage.
This is absolutely a transformational moment for her. And I really like that we recharacterized Sylvia as not a good mother at heart, but that she's working
like
for
an evil stepmother, essentially.
She's totally an evil stepmother.
Well, and how much of this too is this is the danger of adolescence. If you've got a super intelligent and super powerful creature that is going to by its natural design start to rebel at a certain age. So you couple that with so it's also like it's the inevitability, right? I mean, there's at some point it's going, all kids are going to question their construct, healthy or unhealthy or whatever it may be. It's just a natural part of this.
Yeah.
So now if you couple that with, okay, but she has different types of eyes and different types of intellect to process this. This is where that hubristic, backfiring starts to come into play, right? It's like, okay, well, you've kept them at a certain age, but in that development, this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to have somebody starting to question all these things, and that's not in someone like Boy K's best interest.
I've been thinking about the coming years with my daughter turning 10 this year. We're on that front side of that teenage rebellion. And fortunately, she's not a person who doesn't thrill seek by pushing boundaries, where I might have done that when I was a kid. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, Steve, about the necessity of rebellion for individuating and actually turning out and we talked about mammalian patterns before, right? At some point, you have to take on your own life. You have to take your lessons learned. And now as an organism, you're out on your own, and that's your life is your responsibility now. And how much rebellion is needed or necessitated to make that break so that you can really be and have that transformational moment, and she's clearly having a transformational moment here where she's starting to see the matrix. She's starting to see how she's being manipulated. She's starting to see the truth of the world. And I don't have my child is not there yet. I don't know how old your guys' kids are, but I think older.
Mine are much older, yes.
Steve's children have a AARP platform.
That's right. And for for my son in particular, like there was a lot of rebellion and then kind of a coming back to, right? Like, okay, I did it. I did my thing.
You had your Rome Sprinken or whatever it's called.
Right, yeah. And now I'm like, all right.
Call back to witness.
That's right. So he's got he's still, he's operating with sort of the baseline that he was raised with. He's made some modifications. He's kept what works. And, and also the relationship between us have evolved on both sides. Right. So like it becomes a necessary element, not just for the, like you said, the individuation of the maybe the child going through it, but also how the family dynamic changes because of the parental adjustments that might be made because of this. Because, well, if this person's going through this evolution, I can either just stand here and say, well, all right, well, that now you still have to exist in the world that I'm used to, or we evolve with it. And that's sort of the back and forth. And that's something I don't see. You know, a lot of people are willing to do that, especially in the teen years, right? You do that maybe later.
Mm-hmm.
But the teen years, it is easy to just sort of dismiss and say, well, this is just part of this. This is a phase. This is what you're acting out. And you sort of wallow in the present frustration as opposed to understanding what the bigger picture might be lending to. And we've seen that. And we'll see that here, but the stakes are much higher, right?
Anthony?
I don't know about parenting. I completely failed twice.
All right. Fair enough. Just a quick aside. I quickly looked up the Street Fighter Wikipedia, and I didn't realize that there are over 30 characters across a dozen games. I only played the first one. So I was like, because I didn't recognize the name that you threw out at Steve there. I am shocked at the international or the intellectual property, the span of intellectual property for Street Fighter.
Well, new movie's coming out, so you can get excited for that.
Very exciting. All right. Wrapping up here. Toodles is not connected. Arthur packs up and Joe comes to talk with him. Arthur shuts down the hybrid monitoring system and in doing so learns that Toodles is offline. Pretty much a bridge scene here to set up the action for the back half of the episode, the season. Any notes from either of you on this?
I think we should get right to the vent. You seem to have this a major. You seem to have a major issue with the vent.
Oh yeah, I thought you said the event, the vent. All right. Well, the final scene. Everything okay? Affirmative. Arthur goes to check on Toodles and slightly takes advantage. So there's been a lot of critique about the show regarding these various plot mechanics and certain conceits that are put forward. Incompetent scientists and thin glass and this kind of stuff. My beef is with the grates that cover an air duct system and the ability of people just to grab it, pop it off with their hands without any tools or anything else, and then go inside of it and then just pull it closed behind them and the thing sticks. And unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. And you got to be a little bit like Llewellyn here in No Country for Old Men, and you've got to unscrew these suckers and then screw them back on. It is a lot of extra work. So if I'm going to nitpick on the season and the show, that's my one beef is the air grates.
Isn't it kind of an alien trope to be crawling through vents?
Yes, it goes back.
Pull the vent off. And
All right, so this is a world where people crawl through vents like all the time. Like this is sort of like their preferred method of transportation.
Right.
Vents are this world's Uber.
I do think that there's something about, if I could imagine an ideal world, there would be no screws on vents. If I need to access my basement, I'm just gonna very easily open that door. There's not gonna be like a rug in the way.
Right,
There's not gonna be
pop it off.
Just pop it off, use it, put it back together. I mean, I think I could probably imagine a situation where these vents are pretty secure. They secure themselves. It takes a lot to get them open, but of course these machines have superhuman strength, right? We saw that he
that I buy.
pulled the door off.
Right.
So really the question is, would the vent cover just pop right back into place when you're done with it?
Right.
I'm okay with this. I mean, I'm not going to stick on this. I mean, look, if Cormac McCarthy had written this, then every single detail would be accounted for. This is not a Cormac McCarthy. I mean, what Cormac McCarthy does is
No Country for Old Xenomorphs.
That's right. That's right. What he would do with this is he would reduce it, and so that you're following these characters in a meticulous way where every detail matters. But this is not that kind of show. This is a Game of Thrones kind of show. You got Galaxy Brain going all over this show, right? So if you're going to stick on the vent, I think that you're missing the forest for the trees in this case. Fair enough?
Fair enough. And I think...
right.
Yeah, so you want us to believe in the technology that could put people's consciousness into other bodies, but not any technology that is going to put screws on.
I think it's worse than that. I kind of don't believe that technology either. Like, I think that that's magic. I don't think that that's science fiction. So I mean, look, this cyborg, he's got a magic arm. Like, I mean, I've already suspended disbelief.
You're kind of going you're a little Peter Pan on
I am. I am a little bit Peter Pan for sure.
Yeah. So you're saying that a little pixie dust on the vents is all that we need.
That's right. Yeah.
So we get our facehugger scene, which is a classic of the Alien storyline. And I think they did it really well. This was a really credible facehugger attack. I really enjoyed how they staged this. I think it's one of my favorite, actually.
Did you see Arthur coming? Because I did not see Arthur coming.
I did not, and I thought it was perfect. A perfect plot weave. He wove that perfectly.
Yeah, I thought this is going to be Joe. Of course, it's going to be Joe. It's a guy we really care about.
Right.
We can't afford to lose Joe. And then, of course, Joe's in the room, and you're thinking, this is a really botched attempt, Arush. Like, this is not fooling anybody. Which helped me because I was like, it helps to remind, a childlike intellect is not necessarily going to be good at this.
Right. It actually manipulating an adult into come see something special.
And then when the other soldier comes into the room, I think, of course it's going to be him, So I was fooled by a sleight of hand for sure.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, one of the most believable things is Joe just, placating to a child and like, oh yeah, no, I totally want to see it. Nobody wants to see what a child has to show them ever.
Well, that's nice, honey. That's nice.
What are the sheer odds that it's going to be something awesome? Yeah, no, that rock does look like Idaho. Like, great.
Yeah, I you know what? For all of my critique, I really did like this episode.
Yeah.
I really loved.
Oh no, it's not a bad episode, but to me, I mean, maybe it's that patrol scene in particular that just sort of
sagged it down.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like the dialogue was particularly compelling, and the acting was a little everything felt off about that.
Yeah, yep. But it's an important bridge,
sure,
for sure. And then we get this absolutely phenomenal image breaking the fourth wall with our new metal Gobsmack. Keep Away by Gobsmack. Sickness spilling through your eyes is, I believe, the first line of the lyrics. So I don't know this band. Do either of you know Gobsmack?
A little bit.
I do not.
So it didn't work for me as one of those ending synthesis things. I mean, it worked in as much as like, oh, cool, that's a metal song, but it didn't have a nostalgia kick for me in the same way as somebody else, maybe. So I was a little bit let down. Maybe that was the other reason why I was a little let down by this, is because it wasn't like Ronnie James Dio or
Yeah, but you got your tessellate.
Mm-hmm.
You got a little mid-show modern music. So
right. So we're left with these giant questions of how much is the image actually orchestrating, and then what the hell is up with Kirsch. So really great cliffhangery things that aren't cliffhangers as such.
It's amazing the amount of influence you can have over $1 billion company just by a strategic tap on the glass. If you just time it right, you can take down the whole thing.
That's right.
That's right.
Way more fragile. All right, gentlemen. Well, I think unless there's anything else, we're at the end of our run here. You have quite the bag of voicemails and emails that we have prepped for you. So you're going to be recording and putting that out on Properly Howard movie review next week. There's links in the show notes in the link tree, or you can just in your podcast player just search Properly Howard. You're not going to find any other lookalike podcast. Believe me, it is the podcast tile art is pretty distinctive
and horrific in its own way.
Indeed.
How
What
much
else is
different
happening?
is Alien Earth if it's Howard the Duck instead of a xenomorph?
I like it.
What would happen if the iMorph went to the duck world?
Oh boy, I
There you
like
go.
this.
Now you're on to something. You guys can talk about it on your episode next week. What else is happening with Properly Howard?
Well, we're in the middle of our bacon wrap season. Most recently, we covered trains, planes, and automobiles.
Nice.
Doing really a deep dive into the psychotic character that is Del Griffith. Next week, of course, it'll all be about Alien Earth. And then after that, Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Yes.
Which has a little bit of lore around the creation of this film and the sort of the shambolic outcome of the film.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Again, you can get, do you have a expected recording date if people want to get their last minute feedback in, or is it nebulous?
I mean, you could give it a try.
Okay.
Just send it off. You know, maybe it'll get through, maybe it won't. And we'll do our best.
Great. avp@thelorehounds.com. Join us on Discord for real-time chats. Links for all of that stuff is in the show notes. Again, we have a season pass running. One time, $10, and you get ad-free and then all the bonus stuff. And that really helps us. You know, I put a lot of work into the prep. It's not a sad song here, but I don't know. We're really excited about the show, and I think it's just a really great way to support us to manage all the particulars and production. So thanks for your support, those of you who have got the season pass, and thanks to all of our subscribers. Next week, Ron Dawson is going to join me for the penultimate, and then Aisha from Every Single Sci-Fi Film Ever podcast is going to join me for the finale. And I don't know, it's kind of a little tradition that she and I have to put these things to bed. She helped me put Andor to close out Andor, and we had a lovely talk. So I'm really excited to talk with both of those, because Ron's also a big, keen TV viewer, and Aisha's going to have some great insights. So join me for the next couple of weeks when we wrap it up with episode 8. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. It was sort of a mini Severance reunion.
I think one more little bit of advice here, and that is, don't pull out your feet for any negotiation. You know, wait till there's like 20 billion on the line before you start picking your toenails.
Always be one step ahead.
Thanks for joining us for our coverage of Alien Earth Season 1. We hope our conversation has added to your enjoyment of the xenomorphic mysteries and the many layered allegories that Noah Hawley has brought to the series. You can find links to all of our affiliates, our Patreon and Supercast pages, and Discord in the show notes for the episode. Look for the link tree, which has everything. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and series. Send us your feedback and we'll answer and read it on our next podcast. Send emails to avp@thelorehounds.com or send us a voicemail. You can use the voicemail tool on our website, thelorehounds.com/contact, or record a note on your smartphone and email it to us at the same address. If you have enjoyed our approach, please consider supporting independent podcasters like us by subscribing on either Patreon or Supercast. Your support allows us to continue to produce comprehensive podcasts like these for the shows and films that matter most to our community. And at the end, we always like to give a special shout out to our Discord server boosters who help keep our community thriving. Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Duve71, Athena Ajalea, Lestu, Nancy M, Ghost of Perdition, and Radioactive Richard. And our deepest gratitude goes to our Lore Master subscribers whose top tier support makes everything we do possible. Samartian, Michael G., Michelle E., Brian P., SC, Peter O.H., Adam S., Nancy M., Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H., Sarah L., Gareth C., Matthew M., Sarah M., Andra B., Kwang Yu, Deadeye Jedi Bob, Nathan T., Alex V., Sub-Zero, Aaron K., Dally V., Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W., Lestu, Jeffrey B., Elisa U., Neil F., Ben B., Scott F., Stephen N., Julia F., Kali S., Ilmariel /Tim, Paul K., Bobby C., Jessica H., and always last but never least, Adrian. The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by the Lorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employer or other entities. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, David here. We're almost done with Alien Earth, and I wanted to let you know about something that we've put together. We've created a season pass for our coverage. It's $10 one time, no recurring subscription. You can grab this whenever it works for you. What you get is ad-free access to all Alien Earth episodes, plus the bonus video analysis that I've already done, and several more background conversations and special episodes that I've got in planning. We put a lot of work into the episodes, and when it's all said and done, you're getting more than 10 podcasts for $10, which really is a pretty good value considering the amount of time and production work that we put into all the episodes. And look, we're an independent podcast, and having direct listener support like this means that we get to keep doing this kind of deep dive coverage that we all enjoy. It's pretty simple. So only if this works for you and your circumstances, no pressure at all. But if you've been enjoying Alien Earth coverage and want to support what we're doing while getting some extra content, the season pass is there for you. You can find the link in our show notes or head to lorehoundsnetwork.supercast.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being part of this really great community.